Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 120 of the Runnin The Paint Podcast. I'm Miles here with Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Good. We're back. Gonna wrap up these first round series because I know we haven't been on in a little bit, but we're back here to give some analysis on that previous round, and then obviously looking forward to hopefully another great second round.
Yeah, one of the better first rounds across the board that I can remember. It was entertaining on a lot of series. So definitely excited to cover that. So before we get right into that, let's do PERTL like we always do. Nick, who should our first guest be?
Let's see. How about Desmond Bain?
I'll go Desmond Bain, player recently eliminated. All right, not bad, not bad.
So this player is going to be in the Western Conference, a little bit taller than 6'5". He's a guard though. Older than 26 on a jersey number lower than 22. Not in the Southwest Division, so either in the Pacific or the Northwest.
Yeah, probably a Western Conference wing player that's older. Um, hmm. First player that comes to mind is Jimmy Butler
Okay.
to me. What do you think?
I don't know why I thought of Kevin Knox. I know he's lower, or I know he's younger. So,
Oh well, he'd be younger. Um,
but I was trying to think of Portland, Northwest. Um, I'm good with Butler because my other guest in Bain was going to be Kaminga, just because he was top of mind since he's kind of been out of the rotation in Golden State.
true, but I mean, remember it is going the reverse direction age wise, so this is gonna be like an
Yeah.
older type of guy. So we'll try Jimmy Butler. We'll see how we go there. Okay, wow,
All right. We got the conference, got the age right on the number, and the number right on the number.
that's incredible. 35-year-old number 10. Can't be a lot of those. Let's see. Pacific Division. That's all the California teams. This DeMar DeRozan?
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan,
DeMar DeRozan.
Joey's guy.
Joey's guy. Unfortunate that he can't make it on when it's one of his beloved Sacramento Kings. But let us know how long it took you guys to get DeMar DeRozan. That was pretty good.
Yeah, Desmond Bain to Jimmy Butler to DeMar DeRozan.
That's pretty good. Pretty good right there. But let's get into these playoff recaps and previews. It has been a while since we've been on a week since we've had the full podcast. And man, there has been a lot that has happened, especially in the first round. So we're going to take some time to recap four first round series here. Let's start off with the Bucks Pacers series, which ended in dramatic fashion. It was unbelievable how that ended. Of course, the unfortunate Damian Lillard injury in game four, out for the rest of the series and potentially all of next season. We could get into that later. Pacers went into game five with a 3-1 lead, a chance to clinch it. The Bucks came out hot, but the Pacers still found a way in overtime. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. I don't even know if that describes it because, like you said, when Dame went out in Game 4, obviously their focus shifted a bit, and like we're gonna talk about the Giannis questions here in a second. But the Bucks made a game on the Pacers' home court, facing elimination, and had a 7-point lead with 40 seconds left. Which I mean, like, if you have a three possession lead with under a minute, you're usually home free, you're usually in the clear, but. Um, I think Nemhard might have hit a deep three. Nemhard, that dude, talking about a playoff guy.
Playoff riser.
But I mean, blowing a 7-point lead in the last 40 seconds is just almost impossible to do. Um, but Gary Trent, I mean, had 8 threes or something in game five or game six, rather, facing elimination. Game five, sorry, down 3-1, game five. And then just a really like costly turnover that's going to be, living in his head for a while, probably.
Yeah, I mean, in Bucks infamy, when you look at it, it was incredible. The Bucks started out crazy. I mean, they had a 20-point lead near the end of the first quarter. We all thought that the Bucks would probably just lay down and die after the injury, just get the season over with. Doc Rivers going into this game finally made a lineup change. He finally took guys like
AJ
Kyle
Green?
Kuzma. What?
Did he play AJ Green?
He started AJ Green. He
Yep.
started Bobby Portis. He started Kevin Porter. He obviously had to with Damian Lillard out. And kept Gary Trent Jr. in the starting lineup. He took out what? I mean, basically in this game, four of the five regular starters were basically didn't play in this game. Doc Rivers played his 5 guys, and this is what we were saying really for the end of the regular season when the Bucks finished the season strong, and in the first 4 games of the series, that Giannis Antetokounmpo has just looked better with the second unit guys. It's been really strange, but the Bucks had played better when it was Portis, AJ Green, Kevin Porter, and Gary Trent out there with Giannis. And finally, Doc Rivers goes to it in the final game of the season. And I kind of understood why. I mean, it was weird. It was weird seeing Kyle Kuzma, Brooke Lopez, guys, with pedigree in this league come off the bench. It was Lopez's first time coming off the bench in like 4 or 5 years. Um,
I
and it
mean,
it was just weird for that to happen, but it was something that Doc Rivers needed to do. And man, they nearly came out with the victory. Giannis had 30 points, 20 rebounds, 13 assists. Gary Trent Jr. had 33 points, 8 threes, 4 of them in overtime. He quickly turned from the hero to, I mean, the enemy, really, for
yeah.
Bucks fans with the Butterfingers on that last play. I mean, it really was unbelievable from their side of things, just giving it away. But got to give credit to this Pacers team who's just been hot all playoffs long. We'll obviously get to game one of their second round series, but they have just been dynamite. And yeah, 7 point comeback in 30 to 40 seconds. It really is just unheard of. It's absolutely unheard of.
I mean, for the Bucks, like the last 2 years since you bring in Dame, to keep Giannis there, it's just like you throw a coach out in the middle of the year, bring in Doc Rivers, and then with your backs up against the wall, you force him to play the only guys on the roster who he feels comfortable to trust. Like, so from a coaching and the Bucks perspective, like I think Doc made the right decision. They had the guys out there who he felt like he trusted his intuition. But this is just like a complete vindication of the Bucks front office because you can't have a star player average 35 and 13 and 8 and not have anyone else there around him, like, and go out 4-1 in the first round. Like that cannot happen.
No, it just can't happen for a guy that is the third best player in basketball. This guy's a top 3 player in the world. And in this series, in the 5 game series, Giannis averaged 33 points, 15 rebounds. Both of them still lead the playoffs, along with 6.5 assists, shooting 60% from the field and 70% from the free throw line. This is Giannis we're talking about. He had his most efficient playoffs of his career highs in points, rebounds, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and second in assists. I mean, this was arguably Giannis's best playoff series, and it ends in a 5 game loss here because there really was no help across the board. I mean, the only game that they won in this series was when, again, Gary Trent Jr. went crazy in the second half of game 3. But really, besides the second half of game 3 and the
No
first
help.
quarter of game
Yeah.
1, or the first quarter of game 5, Pacers dominated. It wasn't even close. Like, even if Damian Lillard was available for the other games in this series, hard to make a case that the Pacers still wouldn't have won this series in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah. They got a great squad, like we talked about last night. I think they're a real matchup problem for the Cavs. I think Turner and Siakam are a difficult matchup for Mobley and Allen. But incredible moment for Tyrese Halliburton to, make the move on Giannis and get the game-winning bucket on your home court. So can we talk about like the aftermath?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Lead us off with that, Nick.
I mean, I got a ton of respect for Giannis. I hate to just flip the narrative. Like, just talked about him needing help, had averaging 35 and 15 and 7, and he is a top 3 player, and he needs help, and he shouldn't be out in the first round like he was. But I'm all for like congratulating your competitors. I know he's very. I love listening to him talk in post games when he gets eliminated because he drops some of the biggest, like some of the deepest quotes ever. I wish I didn't take that for him to drop it, but back to back years now where he gets eliminated and he's like, "Well, what is failure?" And I believe in what did he say this year? Winning and winning with class. So couple good speeches face or after elimination, but okay, I get it. Winning with class and like you want to congratulate your competitor. She's always done that. But there is an argument for like, all right, you lost. Like, just get off the court. Like, just go to the locker room, get off the court. Like, it's over. Like, You don't need to congratulate everybody. You don't need to grab the back of Benedict Matherin's head and say anything in his ear. And okay, so the context where John Halliburton is gonna run out on the court after the buzzer and basically just like mean mug you and talk smack when he has no, and he admitted it. Like in the context of that, I can see why Giannis would want to hang around a little bit just to like, I don't know, I don't even know what, but like after that happens, yeah, you like I can understand why he would hang around a little bit. But in a normal circumstance where that doesn't happen, it's like, dude, you got to get off the court. You just lost. Like, go to the locker room. It's over. To get your stuff out. Like, let the winners go.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, I mean, it was just such a wild scenario. I think, after the play happens where Halliburton gets the game-winning layup, and the Pacers win, everyone's going crazy. And Giannis, I think rightfully so, is just kind of standing there, just thinking, "What the heck just happened?" Like we had this game, we're about to go back to Milwaukee for Game 6 with a lot of momentum, getting a big road win in overtime.
Yep.
And then your season ends just like that. His Bucks career may end just like that. We could talk about that in a little bit as well. Um, so I think he's probably just thinking about all those things. And while he's kind of basking in the moment, just kind of taking everything in, Halliburton's father comes and does what you just said, kind of being disrespectful.
Very
And I
much.
think it is pretty standard that, at the end of a series, players are going to go over, congratulate them. I mean, there's a lot of respect that does get earned throughout these series. You see it at the end of every, playoff
These are
round.
rivals, though, too.
Yeah, as the
History.
rivals, I think there's definitely a good point on that. I don't understand what he was doing with Benedict Matherin holding the back of his head and all that. But either way, it was just a crazy scenario, and now John Halliburton is not allowed to show up to Pacer home or road games for this foreseeable future. Because you shouldn't cross the line like that. I mean, obviously you're the parent of a star player, but that's kind of to the extent that doesn't exactly give you the right to go on the court and just disrespect the other team's best player when I mean, he wasn't the reason that they lost this this series or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely disrespectful and out of line. But my argument for Giannis like still hold. I think like you have to like you have to leave the court after you lose.
Yeah, definitely fair. But moving over to the Bucks kind of off season now, because now it sets up the biggest storyline of the offseason. It's going to be what is the future of Giannis Antetokounmpo? Because now future looks even, dimmer than it did, coming into this season where you're already on a very old team with no future assets as far as draft picks or really young players.
Hey man, they
And
traded for Kyle Kuzma. What do you mean?
oh, right, Kyle, my goodness, dude, what a disaster of a trade that ended up being. Kuzma ends up averaging 6 points per game in this series. I'm sure they would have loved to have Chris Middleton in this series. He definitely would have helped.
I believe you.
Um,
Yeah.
but now you're in a situation where your team is old. You're still in the prime years of your career. We just talked about it. He's may have had his best season overall in the NBA, which is saying something for, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great players of this generation. And you're going to go into a situation where Damian Lillard is probably going to miss the whole season. 34-year-old going on 35 with an Achilles injury. We don't know what will happen with his career. We may have seen the last of him. So if you're the Milwaukee Bucks franchise, it may be a situation where you need to look to kind of retool, rebuild. This is the third straight year where they don't even win a playoff series. The only way to me that the Bucks can really push the reset button is to trade Giannis, which is crazy to say, but I think that that is what they maybe need to look at doing because that might be their best avenue of getting a combination of future assets and maybe a young player for the future.
I totally agree. Bucks are not in a good spot, and there's not a clear road for improvement, barring trading Giannis. Like that is kind of the only way you can really see the roster improving from where it's at this point in time. Um, just got to have those real conversations with yourself if you're running this organization and figure out a plan that actually makes sense. I wanted to make a joke without anything to back it up, but I think Kevin Porter might have been like the second most productive guy in the
Literally.
playoffs for them, and he's
Yeah.
not even on. He's a free agent as well, so he's
Yeah,
not
he
on
d
contract next year.
yeah, I mean, the contract situation, you have Giannis and Lillard each making the same $54 million salary next year. Lillard, all his value is going to be gone with this injury. Kuzma's under contract $22 million next year. And then everything else is kind of up for grabs. You have player options for Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, and Kevin Porter. Porter will probably decline it because he probably made himself some money in this series. He played pretty well, for the circumstances. But Brooke Lopez is a free agent. AJ Green is non-guaranteed money. Gary Trent is also a free agent. Well, we just don't really know where the Bucks will want to go here. I mean, it can go two ways. It could be Giannis requests a trade. I don't know if he will request a trade. I feel like he is very loyal to Milwaukee, and I don't know what will happen with that situation. But I think the Bucks could maybe even just look to trade him. Obviously, talk with Giannis about having that conversation. But I think the second path is maybe Giannis is so loyal to Milwaukee that we kind of see what happened with Dirk Nowitzki in his Dallas career after he won a championship. Where crazy to think, after the Mavericks won the 2011 championship, they didn't win a single playoff series for the rest of Dirk's career.
Yeah, but that was only like a couple years. Giannis is still. I mean, Dirk wasn't.
Dirk still played there for a good 8 years after
Oh, did he?
after the title. I mean, 2011 to 2019. If Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee, I could very well see that being the case. I hope that they do look to move him and that he can get another chance to compete for a championship in a better situation. Because I do think that he's the third best player in the world. I think that there are a lot of teams that could definitely use his services. Um, but either way, just a tough situation for the Bucks. And I personally feel like the only way to kind of make it right is to trade Giannis, as weird as that is to say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Definitely for the Bucks this offseason. Hey, real quick, did you see Booker can sign like a 175 contract or 2 year 150 million?
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, his next he's eligible for a $75 million a year paycheck.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds about right because this is um yeah, he's definitely going to get paid there. We'll see what the Suns end up doing moving forward cuz who knows, maybe that's a destination. You never know what could happen with
I
these.
just heard that number on the Hoop Collective this morning and I was appalled.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
that's ridiculous. The money is crazy. It's only going up. It's
Yeah.
only going up. But either way, shout out to the Pacers for taking care of business in that first round. We'll get to their series in a little bit. But going over to the other series in the Eastern Conference, New York versus Detroit. This series went 6 games. New York took a 3-1 lead, a controversial 3-1 lead after the end of game 4. Detroit went on the road, stayed alive in game 5, and it looked like they were going to force a game 7.
Yeah.
But Jalen Brunson, man, in the clutch, showed why he is the clutch player of the year, and just that the experience and the offensive firepower really proved to be the difference.
Yeah, I was trying to go back and look real quick. I don't know if the Knicks even had the lead up until he hit that shot. Like it felt like the Pistons were gonna win though the whole time. Um, but the Knicks hit some free throws, or they played the free throw game late and kept it within 3 points. It was a one possession game, and Jalen Brunson, or well, they tied it up. Sorry. And when Jalen Brunson's got the ball in his hands, like you feel pretty good. Even though Asar was clamping him up most of that game, like it's a lot of space there for Jalen to work with, and just planted that leg. And I don't know if he pushed off or not, but there was a lot of space.
There was definitely a lot of space on that play. Yeah, I mean, this was just a great series
Yeah,
all the way through. All the games were close competitive. There weren't any blowouts, which was great to see. I mean, I think the widest margin of victory was probably in that game 1, which was close until New York went on that 21-0 run um, in game 1. But yeah, you talk about a game of runs. This was a game of runs in game 6 where New York, I mean, they got off to a great start, which is where the Pistons, I think, lost the game. Once again, at home, they come out flat. Another game where the Pistons come out flat at home to start a playoff game, turning the ball over. not able to hit from three. I think what were they? Or I might be confusing games together, but they were struggling from three.
You
Besides
know,
Malik Beasley, who went crazy in the first half, no one else really got it going from 3 point range.
I was
And
going back to what I had written down from the game because it was a little while ago already, and
yeah,
Brunson had an early, like he was on a heater early, 11 points and early, and then what happened was New York was up huge, not huge, but they were in control after the first quarter, and then they just slowed down. Looked like they got comfortable. And Beasley, yeah, like you said, Beasley heated up. New York slowed down, and Beasley heated up. And then throughout the rest of the game, it was very close. But it was the defense. Honestly, both teams it looked like missed a lot of shots, especially in that second and third quarter. But Detroit's defense was really good,
yeah, and that's been their calling card all season long. And
except
in
for that
this
last
game,
possession. Except for that last possession.
yeah, except the last possession there. But no, Asar Thompson did a great job on Brunson for the most part throughout the series. Brunson gave Thompson a lot of credit in his post game interview for the
Well,
defense that
Brunson,
he did play.
I think he had 40 or 43 in this game.
He had to take 33 shots to do it, though. He had to fire up a
Okay.
lot of shots.
Yeah.
Um, and just great experience for this Pistons team going forward. Obviously, a heartbreaking loss, but you need that experience. Every single young team has to go through this type of experience, and this is only going to help them moving forward. In this game, Thompson even had a good game on the offensive end. Same thing with Jalen Duren. I thought those two were fantastic. And it was really those young guys that kind of led the Pistons to come back in this game, something that's kind of different from the first few games of the series where it was the veterans that were leading the way with Harris, Hardaway, and Beasley. In the second half of this game, it was really those youngsters for the Pistons that got them back in the position to, try and force a game seven, but just not able to do it. Knicks just more talented at the end of the day. They had more secondary scores with Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Still don't like seeing these games where Karl Anthony Towns is only taking like 10 shots.
Well, Cat fouled out at the end of this one, didn't he? He was on the bench.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought with Asar guarding Jalen so well all game, I was like, I think Mikal Bridges might get this shot. But they let Jalen work, and I can't discredit them for it because it obviously ended well.
Yeah. The New York taking the series in 6 games against the Detroit Pistons. Excited to see what the Pistons do in the offseason going forward, if they will try to make any moves, after having a successful season, or if they'll run it back with the same squad. But moving over to the Western Conference, let's talk Lakers Timberwolves, man. The LA Lakers already out.
Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert, the big difference in game 5 of that series. Minnesota beating the Lakers in 5. Did not see this happening whatsoever. On our panel, not even just on the podcast, but even outside of the podcast, we have a 10-person kind of group chat where we're all picking these series and all these playoff games. And all 10 of us picked the Lakers to win this series going in, but Minnesota really had full control of the series after game 2, winning the final 3 games. Nick, what do you think went wrong for the Lakers in this series?
I just don't think that they had a game plan available that was gonna lead them to winning the series. I think two things can be true at the same time. I don't think that they um played their best, but I also think that Minnesota beat them and not the other way around where the Lakers kind of like beat themselves or gave it up. I think the Lakers could have done more to put up a better fight, but I don't think that they would have come out on top at the end. Anyways,
Yeah, I think the big game to look at is probably game 4 in that second half, where Joey and I talked about it already, where JJ Redick played that 5-man unit the entire second half, and they obviously got fatigued. I mean, the heavy minutes in this series was unbelievable for all these guys. And we really couldn't see a whole lot of crazy adjustments in this series because the lack of depth was very clear throughout the course of the series for the Lakers. They really didn't have many plan Bs or plan Cs with players to just throw into the game. Besides, we saw Maxi Kleba play his first game as a Laker in the elimination game. That just shows the kind of cards that JJ Redick had to play. There really weren't many schematic things that they could have done. And that really showed in this series.
Yeah, like I said, I just don't think that they had a game plan available that was going to be productive for them. And when I saw Kleber in there, I like JJ Redick has done a lot of great this year. Like came in his first year with a lot of question marks, and then led a tumultuous year where you traded your second best player, and comes Luca, and you're still the 3 seed. Like has done a great job. And even in this series, um, did some wild things. But at the end of the day, like I think that they executed what he wanted. I think that he prepared them for um, the way that he wanted to. I just don't know if it was the right way, because if you look at like this series, you had Jaden and Nas basically go off at the beginning of the series, and the adjustment was to sit Hayes and not play Vanderbilt as much. Keep Gabe Vincent on the bench as well to keep Minnesota's like perimeter secondary offensive players like Julius and Nas, and guys who get the kickouts from Ant, to kind of stop them a little bit. But what he didn't sort of like expect, or didn't maybe take into the equation, was the fact that Rudy could go off for 27 and 25 in an elimination game. I mean, if you look at it, like they gave up 18 offensive rebounds in this one. They got beat on the glass like crazy, and they still only gave up 103 points. So like I think what they tried to do worked. I just think that they got beat.
And the sleeping on Rudy Gobert's ability to go. I would have slept too. I think all of
Right.
us would have. I mean, come on. Rudy Gobert, I think the number was through the first 4 games of the series, he had 14 total points, 25 rebounds, and he goes off for 27-24 in this game. I mean, just unbelievable. This was a series that going into game 5, Minnesota was up 3-1, and Rudy Gobert, this may have been his worst offensive playoff series going into that game. And that is saying something for Rudy Gobert. And then, completely turns around in game 5. I mean, the Lakers going small and never really going with a true 5 opened up the door for Gobert to just go crazy on the inside. Nas Reed from the outside, and players like Jaden McDaniels to just take advantage of his matchup on the offensive end, because that's the thing with this Lakers team. We talk about it all season long. I mean, or the second half of the season when they had LeBron, Luca, and Reeves, on how offensively it was going to be so tough to stop them, because your third best defender is probably going to have to guard Reeves, who had a very good year. But conversely, you look at the defensive side where LeBron James is your best defender, and then it's Reeves and Luca, who both got targeted at time and time again in this series. That's where it was a problem. I mean, if you go back and watch Jaden McDaniels highlights from this series, I'd bet to say that a good portion of them were just dribbling right by Luca or
Yeah.
Austin Reeves for a pull-up. Like, it was just that easy.
So do you think that a rim protecting lob threat like solves everything, or like what else do the Lakers need to do?
Well, obviously they need a center. They definitely
Yeah,
need a
that's a good
center
place
that.
to start, but that doesn't get Luke and Austin Reeves out of cement on the perimeter.
Right, absolutely. And it also didn't help that Reeves didn't really have that great of an offensive series either. I think that the extended minutes was such a problem,
Yeah.
in this series. I think that if they had more avenues or ways to play, and they weren't so one-dimensional as far as just an ISO team on the offensive end, then I think that would make things a lot easier, because that's another thing too. When you're having to resort to this one-on-one isolation basketball and spending so much energy for a guy like Luca, having to isolate against great defensive players like Edwards, McDaniels, Alexander Walker, you're having to expend so much energy offensively that you're gonna give back, some of that on the defensive end. So you wonder if it is kind of a situation where if the Lakers could get a rim protecting center, I don't know the best guys on the market, but if they could get a rim protecting center, they could kind of have a defense where you just funnel everything to that center. We kind of saw that. I mean, we're obviously Cavs fans. We kind of see it best where that's where a smaller backcourt like Garland or Mitchell, two offensive minded guards, can work, because on the defensive end, just funnel your guy to the middle, and you have to meet Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. Lakers don't have any of that because they don't have the size or athleticism. So I think it obviously starts with a center, because even when you have a defensive center, that'll help your guards play better defense because they're going to feel more protected out there. I don't feel like they are protected out there right now.
I totally agree. I don't know, man. The Lakers fooled us all. They played really well defense at the end of the regular season, but just goes to show that the playoffs are a different animal. And I don't know, some flashy transition passes and step backs fooled us at the end of the regular season to taking the Lakers. But I don't know. It seems like after the fact, the Wolves were clearly the better team.
Yeah, it's easy to see now after the fact. I think this Lakers team that we saw in the playoffs is definitely closer to the team that I think we probably expected after
Right.
the trade, more so than the team in the second half of the year. So the thing that the Lakers will need to figure out, obviously making some roster decisions is, you know, was which team are we going to get from the Lakers? Are we going to get the team that, lost in 5 games to a 6 seeded Wolves team, or is it the team we saw at the second half of the regular season? That'll be something to watch for going forward. But either way, the Wolves with a shocking first round win, definitely an upset against the heavily favored Lakers. But let's move on to the final round one series, the best series of the first round. The Denver Nuggets and the LA Clippers, one of 2 series to go, 7 games. And man, thought that it would be a fantastic game 7 after the build up through the first 6 games, but Denver really just wiped the floor with the Clippers on both sides of the floor.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. I had the Clippers being able to tough it out, but they ran out of energy, and Russell Westbrook was the difference. I mean,
Yeah.
that tech was awesome. Hang on the rim, take your butts home. I don't care. The tech was the best tech of all time. And
That
then
was definitely the moment of the game, that's for sure.
from the Clippers side of things, um, I thought Batum was like their best adjustment, but that isn't a great like best adjustment, I guess. Like if Batum is the guy that you're relying on to be able to be the guy that makes a difference when Murray and Jokic are going, and you got Kawhi and Harden obviously had a stinker in this one, but we talked about it last night. Like he had a great game 6 facing elimination, and I think he's gonna get a lot of stuff for the game 7, rightly so. Like you got to be able to show up in a big time game, but like Denver had Christian Brown have one of the best games of his playoff career, and Russ Westbrook showed up. MPJ I think had 20. Aaron Gordon is not just a role player; he's legit. And then we were talking about in the pre-pod lobby, like the reason we'll talk about in a second, Denver beating OKC in the next round is because like when you have Jokic, who's undeniable, can do almost anything he wants most of the time he's out there, and then you have Jamal Murray paired next to him who can use him in a pick and roll game and get to a pull up jumper, get to the rim, find shooters, pull up for three. Like he can also be undeniable. And when there's 2 guys like that, that is a storm that is really hard to stop. And so for the Clippers, like James Harden and Kawhi just weren't that storm, and their best option off the bench was an aging Batum who made an impact, but not on the level that Russ did. And Jokic and Murray were just better.
Yeah, the Clippers just had a stinker in this game, and you got to give credit to the Denver Nuggets for all showing out. I mean, their top 6 guys played very, very well, and that's what you need to do in a game 7 situation. Where I had the Clippers winning as well. I had the Clippers winning this series in 7 games because I just thought that the star power of Kawhi and James Harden would have gotten it done in the clutch, and Norman Powell as well. And obviously, Harden and Powell combined for 16 points on 6 of 19 shooting. Not ideal. And James Harden, this is another, situation where he doesn't have a good game when it matters the most. And, it's definitely hard to see as someone that has really become a fan of James Harden this season. Very big bounce back year for Harden, but same old story when it matters most. And it's hard to see, but it's really hard to look at it any other way.
Well, here's
You
the thing,
know,
Miles. You gain the respect for him this year for being the guy he's always been and just staying true to himself. And well, he's doing that still and facing like you can't fault him for being himself.
that's right. But yeah, just seven points is just not enough. Not enough in a game 7 situation. So but
He did
either way,
have 13
Clippers
assists. He had 13 assists.
Yeah, he had 13 assists, but this is one of those games where you need him to shoot. You need him to kind of score more. But and he just wasn't really able to
That's
do
true.
that. But doesn't take away from the great season that the Clippers had. Another team that we came into the season not the best expectations. Probably the highest ones were that they would maybe be a playing team, especially with Kawhi's injury. But Harden stepping back up to being an all-star, potentially all NBA player. Norman Powell stepping up, being a 20-point per game scorer, and Zubats being a potential All NBA player has allowed this team to get to this point where they took the Nuggets to 7 games. And this is a prime candidate of a team that I think will just run things back next year because there's really not a whole lot of moves they can do to kind of get better. And I don't think that this is a bad roster by any means. I mean, this is a team that if they won this game, this team could have potentially beaten the Thunder, and went on a deep run because of the experience and the defense. But it's the Nuggets that advance to the second round, and we can kind of move over to our round two previews here. We'll start off with Denver and OKC. Here is the breakdown. Obviously, OKC, the best season in franchise history, one of the great years in NBA history, 68 and 14, top three offense, the best defense in the NBA. And they've only played 4 games in the last, 21 days because they took care of Memphis so quickly. So this is the prime series for rest versus rust because you have OKC who hasn't played, let's see, it's going to be 9 days since they've played, and the Clippers just played a full 7-game hard fought, or excuse me, the Nuggets just played a 7-game series against Denver. So Nick, what's the first thing that stands out to you with this series? You mentioned before you have Denver winning the series, but what's the first thing you look at with this series?
Um, I don't know if I have Denver. I want Denver. That's my pick. Yeah. I think. Well, asking me that question leads me into. Let me explain why I said I don't know if I have Denver because when you ask that question, I'm like, I think the biggest thing to watch is going to be the depth of the Thunder and the fact that Denver just came off a grueling 7-game series and they're going to be tired playing in about 45 minutes here that they tip off. Sneak peek behind the curtain. Um, or they have the late game. They have the late game, rather. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, but the Thunder played 10 guys by the end of the second quarter, and they feel confident, going that deep in their roster. I just don't know if Denver is going to have the energy. If I know Russ is going to have the energy, but if Murray and Jokic are going to be able to handle a 7-game series, like playing probably 40 plus minutes a night versus a young 10-man rotation.
Yeah, I think that probably is the biggest thing to watch as far as the X's and O's thing. But for me, first, I mean, we're getting the top 2 candidates for MVP in the same series in the second round. That is going to be awesome. Shea versus Jokic probably won't be a whole lot of times where they're obviously guarding each other, but just great that we're going to get that matchup in the second round of the
You got
2
to
better
stop letting me
players.
bury the lead. Just go and say it. Like what do I think the biggest thing is? I'm never gonna be like, oh, 2 MVPs. I'm gonna be like, all right, this is boring, depth, blah blah blah. But if it is the 2 MVPs, I bear the lead every time. You can,
Yeah, that's fair. But no, the depth is definitely something to watch for with the Thunder. And how important the rest versus rust factor really is with this series because Denver, I mean, you could see it both ways. I mean, Denver is coming in the rhythm of playing basketball. They've been playing, every other day basically for the last couple of weeks. Meanwhile, OKC, like I said, has played 4 games in 3 weeks. That's just not the natural NBA rhythm. And now they're going to go into this hard fought series against Denver, which is definitely a step up from the Memphis Grizzlies that they swept in the first round. I think that definitely something to watch for matchup wise is going to be how Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein will fare against Gordon and Jokic because OKC is a team that can match Denver's size there in the front court. They play 2 bigs. Lou Dort on Jamal Murray is going to be a fun matchup. At least I think that's what they would go with.
yeah,
Um, but I think that those matchups on Murray and Jokic are going to be so important because when you look back at the other way, Denver doesn't really have that great of a matchup for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander um, or Jalen Williams when you take a look at it, unless they throw like Gordon on Jada, but then it opens up Maybe then Porter would guard like Hartenstein or Holmgren. The matchups don't really favor the Denver Nuggets, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the rest versus rust thing is interesting because that comes down to like competitive nature, sort of. Because if OKC's sitting at home watching these games, like it's easy to just go up to practice and like, yeah, we'll scrimmage or whatever, and we'll go hard and we'll compete, but it's not the same as being in a 7 game series, which is what Denver's coming off of. So I do think that that could play to Denver's favor, but it might be one of the only things that they got going for their in their favor. If Jamal Murray has to, like create the matchup problem, has to guard Shea or J Dub on the other end, and then has to go against a rotation of Caruso or Dort or Case and Wallace guarding him on the other end. It's just going to be a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing with this Thunder team. Probably the biggest reason that they've been a 68 win team, during the regular season is the fact that on the defensive end, I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams that we've ever seen. And it's because, like, in the case of Denver, if Jamal Murray is trying to find a mismatch, okay, there isn't one. There isn't a mismatch really for OKC. Probably your best bet is to get, Shea Gilgeous Alexander defending you, but he's tall. He's got, great, athleticism on the perimeter. He might make an all defensive team this year, and that's probably your best bet as far as getting a mismatch, unless you try to get Hartenstein on you. I mean, the Thunder, again, they're just deep. All their guys know their roles. But if Jokic is the best player in the series, that definitely gives them a shot here. It's kind of like we talked about in the preview of the Denver Clippers series, a while ago in the first round, where if Shea or Jokic, they'll probably be the best two players. But then who's going to be 3 through 5 or 6? And if it's J Dub and
Right.
Dort and Holmgren versus Jamal Murray, who may not have that great of a series because of the defense, it's obviously favors Oklahoma City. But Denver, I definitely think, has a shot at winning this as well. I think this is probably the toughest series to really predict because Denver is a former champion. They've got, Jokic, who has had his best season in the NBA, and potentially winning his fourth MVP in 5 years. But going into our predictions a little bit, here they are across the board. Nick, again, picked the Nuggets in 7. The rest of us have OKC. Jackson and I have Oklahoma City in 6. Joey's got the Thunder in 7. But I definitely think it is going to be a longer series. I would be shocked if it was a quick one here.
Yeah, like you said with those top 5 guys, if it is J Dub or Hartenstein or not Hartenstein or Chet in them, um, it needs to be like Aaron Gordon and MPJ kind of like putting their names in that conversation for Denver to have a chance. Because I do think the top end between Murray and Jokic, like having 2 guys who are undeniable, is that kind of goes in Denver's favor too. I think those two outweigh Shea, but that's like 2 versus 1. I'm kind of doing in my head. So like you need Gordon or MPJ to be in that top 5 conversation and not have it be Chet and J Dub the entire series. If Chet and J Dub are 2-3 and Shea is 1, or if it's like Shea, Jokic, and Murray, you know, if Chet and J Dub are 4 and 5 throughout the whole series, it's going to be Denver. But if Gordon and MPJ kind of outshine either of those two, then that gives Denver a chance, or it's going to be OKC rather. That gives Denver a chance.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with this series. When you take a look at X factors, it probably is Jamal Murray, really, when you take a look at the biggest X factors and determining factors for this series, because Murray, I mean, he's had a decent playoff so far. But I'd say he was pretty inconsistent against that Clippers defense. In this series. I mean, going back and forth when you look at all the games, he kind of gained some efficiency over the last 3 games, but even in game 7, he only had 16 points on 7 of 15 shooting. You look at the other wins they had, even in game 4, he shot 5 of 17, game 1, 7 for 20. But then you sprinkle it in, he had 43 points in game 5. And that was the big difference in that huge swing game in the series. That was the big game for Denver to win. And Murray had the 43 points. So I think he's probably the key. And of course, OKC, they need J Dub to continue to shine. And probably they need Shea Gilgeous Alexander to play even better than he did in the first round because they were able to sweep Memphis in dominant fashion. And Shea really didn't have that great of a series, in my personal opinion. So they'll need their best players to obviously play at their best. They'll need Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wick. They need their role players to hit threes, and then they obviously need to do a good job guarding Jokic. They can't be letting him go for a crazy stat line where he gets a ton of assists. I think they'd be better off having Jokic scoring in the 30s or 40s with 6 or 7 assists versus 20 points with 13 rebounds, 13 assists, or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm excited.
Yeah, probably the highlight series of this second round with all the star power. Definitely will be fun to watch. But moving on to the other series in the Western Conference, the series that I was never expecting to prepare for this season, the 6-7 matchup in the second round, Golden State versus Minnesota. Here is the breakdown. Both these teams had very similar records in the regular season. Both had their inconsistencies, but both making it to the second round in their own different ways. Golden State beating up on Houston in Game 7, and Minnesota beating the Lakers in 5 games. Joey, I'm losing my mind here. Nick, what stands out to you about the Warriors Wolves series?
Interesting matchup. I think, like we just had the conversation that Rudy went 27 and 24 versus a team with no one over 6'8". Like you got another series here, Rudy, to show us why you're not just a three-time defensive player of the year, and that you can make an impact on that end too. I think that's going to be a big thing for Golden State is how do you handle Rudy? And I don't know. It's interesting because these are two teams that had two of the best records post All-Star break. Both teams are a little new or looking this season with Julius Randle adding in Minnesota and Jimmy Butler obviously in Golden State. So the Ant versus Steph side of the offensive side of the ball is going to be a very fun. Those are my top three things, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an intriguing matchup. Again, one that I never expected to see. In the second round with just the way that both of the seasons have gone for these teams. But first thing I'm curious to see is how Golden State will match up with Minnesota's size and if they'll make an adjustment to their starting five because they went small in the Houston series against that big Rockets lineup. And the Rockets had advantages, at different points with when they had both Adams and Şengün on the floor. They were able to go super big in that series, and it did cause the Warriors some problems, in the second half of the series. They were obviously able to get it done in Game 7 thanks to their defense. But I think that the size will definitely be something to watch for in this series. It'll be fun to see Draymond Green versus Rudy Gobert. We'll see if there's any tussles we get there. And you know what? That kind of leads me to kind of something we mentioned briefly in the pre-pod lobby is Draymond Green's status throughout this entire series. Because in the first round, what did he pick up? I think what technical fouls, three
Four
flagrants.
techs, two flagrants.
Okay, 4 techs, 2 flagrants. That sounds about right. And in the playoffs, on your 7th technical or your 4th flagrant, you automatically get suspended a game. And Draymond Green has basically used up over half of his points in just one series. So I'm excited to see if Draymond will be able to last this series without getting docked a game here.
If he's able to
Um,
tame his behavior a little bit.
yeah, which will be tough against this Minnesota team. But to me, I personally think that this series comes down to the fact that Minnesota was able to kind of sit back after, beating on the Lakers in the first round and watch the Warriors Rockets series and see how the Houston Rockets were kind of able to slow the Warriors down in that series. Because to me, I think that Minnesota has the personnel to pull off what Houston did defensively with way better pieces on the offensive end with Edwards and Randall, who have been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that was our big question with Minnesota last year, and even a little bit this year was like their offense. It was never because Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy, and crazy good defenders. But do they have enough shooting? Can Jaden McDaniels, hit perimeter shots? Can Nickeil Alexander-Walker? What's Mike Conley doing with the ball? Is he turning it over? Is he making plays? And so far, like this year, especially in the second half of the year and in this first round, it's been great because Julius Randle has not only been like an instant offensive person, piece, but he's also just a really good connector and looks like he's playing with a good feel for the guys around him, which is impressive considering it's only his first year there. I think I feel a lot better about the Wolves offense this year than I did last year. And I don't feel any worse about their defense because they just traded Rudy for Cat or Randall for Cat.
Yeah, and with the way Randall has been playing, he may have been the most impressive player from their series against the Lakers. We kind of just breezed through him, but he had a very good series as that connector, as an efficient player on both ends of the floor. He was trying really hard on defense. He was knocking down his threes offensively and not taking a bunch of bad shots, which he could have done at times with the New York Knicks. That has kind of led like me and Jackson to not really like his play style. This Julius Randle, I'm a fan of. If he's going to keep playing like this, then it's going to be, great for the Minnesota Timberwolves because they have the size to defend the Warriors. There are just so many great storylines in this series. Of course, you have Anthony Edwards after beating LeBron and Luca, beating Kevin Durant last year and Jokic. Now the chance to go up against Steph Curry and potentially beat him as well, beat on all the legends, from the 2010s era. You have the Draymond versus Rudy Gobert, and you also have Jimmy Butler versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, something that I
Right,
don't
that's
think we
true.
talk about a lot. Um, it's a while ago now, but the first real negative exit from a team in Butler's career was the Minnesota Timberwolves. And strangely enough, I'm pretty sure he's only played in Minnesota one time since the trade. He's been out for like personal reasons every single year when he was with Miami. So now he's forced to go back to Minnesota. I'm sure that that crowd will have something for him throughout this series.
Is this
I mean,
Jimmy's
this is
fourth
another
team?
series for star power.
This is Jimmy's fourth team. Chicago, Miami, or Minnesota, Miami, Golden State,
Philly and Minnesota. So five,
Philly.
or
Philly.
Golden State. So five teams for Butler.
1/6 of the league.
Yep, that's right. That's right. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting series. I guess let's get into our predictions here. Across the board, all of us going with the Minnesota Timberwolves. All of us feeling like the Wolves have the
Jackson.
advantage. Jackson's going with a sweep. Timberwolves in 4. The rest of us have the Wolves winning this in 6 games. Nick,
Jackson's
why
just
are you?
salty. Jackson's just salty because the Warriors beat the Rockets.
That's right. I'd probably say so. But Nick, why are you leaning with the Timberwolves in this series?
Um, Mainly their offense. Like, I think that they have not only the better team, like depth wise, with guys like Nas Reed and DiVincenzo being able to come off the bench and still have like Mike Conley's kind of a cone. He can't really defend Steph, but Nickeil Alexander Walker and Jane McDaniels can. I think they have they don't even have to put Ant on him the whole game if they don't want to. Like Ant might guard him, but he can save some of his energy for the other side of the ball. I just think they have enough pieces, enough weapons to stop Steph on the offensive side, and then with Nas Reed, DiVincenzo, McDaniels, Walker, all playing really well on the offensive side of the ball. I think AE and Julius will lead them, and then they'll have the other guys play really well as well. And then I didn't even mention, I think the biggest impact guy is going to be Rudy Gobert. If they don't play Kevon Looney in this series, like he's going to have another opportunity to just go off every night.
Yeah, the Warriors are going to need to play Looney in this series more. I mean, they brushed him off for Game 7, and he looked very, very good in that game. I think they're going to need some more of him. We'll probably see Quentin Post, more like we did in that Rockets series in the first round. At least to start games in this series, who do you think Rudy Gobert is going to guard? I think that's something that is, an interesting question.
Draymond,
You think? I wouldn't be surprised if we see him maybe guard like Pajemski or something out there because Draymond Green is involved in so many handoff situations, and I don't know if you want Draymond away or Rudy Gobert away from the basket.
it's
And
true.
in those situations, I mean, it's just so weird because the Warriors play so small, so fast compared to the Wolves, bigger, kind of at a slower pace. I don't know if Steph will get or if Anthony Edwards will guard Steph to start games. I think Jaden McDaniels on Jimmy Butler will be fun, or maybe Randall guards Butler. McDaniels is on Curry, but I think the matchups to start will be very intriguing to start this series. But I agree. I think the Wolves' offense is definitely a big advantage because, like I said, I think the Rockets gave the Warriors a lot of problems with their defense, and the Wolves have similar, personnel to try and cause the same problems while still giving you that boost on the offensive end. So all of us going with the Wolves, though. Surprised none of us went with the Warriors, but all of us going with Minnesota in this series.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, let's move on over to the Eastern Conference for the other two second round series. First, we'll start with the 2-3 matchup in the East. New York versus Boston. Celtics, of course, dominated, this season, second seed in the East with 61 wins. Although it's just a one seed difference, 10 win differential. New York with the 51 wins coming off their 6-game series victory against Detroit. Boston defeated the Orlando Magic in 5 games. What's the first thing that stands out to you with this series, Nick?
Um, I don't know. I don't have much for this. Like, I don't see it. Like, I'm really curious to see what our predictions are and how many games you guys think it's going because it's going to be Boston. I think Drew Holiday could probably sit out the whole series. I think Porzingis might be able to sit out a couple games. I think Boston wins comfortably.
I personally would be shocked if this went any longer than 5 games
Yeah,
because of just how dominant the Celtics have been, not just in the regular season overall, but against the Knicks this season. Um, really just dominating in 3 of the games and getting an overtime win there at the end in New York. What do you think could be the biggest key for the Knicks to make this a competitive series?
it would have to be just giving the ball to Jalen and Cat and having them try and go for 40 apiece every night because I don't see their defense really having a lot of answers to stop the Celtics on that end. I think they're going to have to try and outscore them. And like Cat and Jalen just have to be good if that's going to happen. Because like I have faith in OG and McCall and Josh Hart to make big plays, hit open shots, create more possessions, and get steals and transition points and all that. But it's going to have to be Jalen and Cat leading them, each scoring loads of points. If they're going to have a chance to win 4 games against the Celtics, can't even get it out.
Let alone a couple.
Yeah,
And I do not think that they can afford. I don't think they can get away with games where Carl Anthony Towns is taking 10 shots. Like I said earlier, I mean, in this Pistons series, he had a 10 shot attempt game in Game 6, only took 14 in Game 5, 11 in Game 2. That's just not going to cut it, especially in
yeah, they
this sort of
shouldn't.
series. You need your all-star starter, your second all-star starter, to play like it and just fire away, especially against this Celtics defense. I mean, McHale and OG and Josh Hart, they're, I mean, we, going into the season, we thought that those 3 guys would be the keys in a Knicks Celtics series because a lot of people going into the season, this was probably the Eastern Conference Finals that most of us had penciled in coming
Yep.
into the season, and it was because New York has these guys that have been great perimeter defenders before in their careers that can go up against Brown and Tatum. So they're going to need to try and do a solid job of preventing the Celtics to get up a whole lot of threes. I think this is another situation where the Knicks were able to kind of look at the Magic versus the Celtics and see the blueprint to being in games against this team, where the Magic allowed the Celtics to the least amount of threes they attempted, all season long. I think there are 4 least amount of threes attempted this season have been against Orlando, regular season and playoffs. And I think that's probably the key that Tom Thibodeau is going to look at going in. Force the Celtics to take mid-range shots, go to the basket a little bit more. The thing is, you you can't be allowing layups and dunks. You need to try to just force Brown and Tatum and Porzingis into contested twos, and then hope that your offense can kind of go crazy, led by Brunson.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the game plan. Contested twos, and like coming into the year, we definitely I think had the Knicks and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think OG nothing has changed. Like OG, Josh Hart, and Mikal are good defenders on the wings, and that's why we had them matching up well with the Celtics. I just feel like in this conversation, like great offense beats great defense. Specifically, like just Tatum and Brown, like able to beat very good defenders on most nights. They're just able to overcome good defenders. And then not having any rim protection, you have no one to funnel these guys into. Like you can't expect to keep Tatum and Brown in front of you the entire game, and then when there's no secondary defense, it all falls apart. So they only play Mitchell Robinson like 13 to 14 to 15 minutes a night, and without like that part of the equation, the the wing defense it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and the pick and roll defense doesn't matter. I mean, that's going to be something to watch immediately as well. Is how are the Knicks going to cover the Celtics in pick and roll situations? Is Towns going to be in the drop like he always is? Are we going to see more Mitchell Robinson in this series? Could we potentially see both of those guys together? Will Precious Achua finally play? Because if we come out in this game one and the Knicks are in drop coverage, they're cooked. They're
Yeah,
they're not gonna have a chance. They cannot play drop coverage against the Celtics.
I would like to see a two big lineup with Mitch and Cat out there a little bit.
I think that's something that we were really excited for coming into the season. Problem is with Mitchell Robinson being out for so long, they never really had much time to experiment with that during the regular season, and now you're in the playoffs.
Right.
You can't really rely on that too much. So we'll see how long they'll be able to do it. I mean, we saw again in the Rockets Warriors series how Adams and Şengün work together. We'll see if maybe that can work for the New York Knicks. But getting into our predictions, not a shocker. Most of us have the Celtics, but Jackson's got the Knicks in six.
I'm rolling
Nick and
my
I
eyes. I know
both
you
have
can't see
Boston
it.
at five. Joey's got a little faith in the Knicks to make this competitive. Has the Celtics in six.
I'm rolling my eyes at Jackson's pick, but what else is new? Because it's the second prediction pick in a row I've rolled my eyes at this pick for. So
Yeah. So yeah, but Celtics, we have them winning this series bit easily. Hopefully the Knicks can make this somewhat competitive here. But moving over to the final second round series that has already started between the number one Cavs and the number four Pacers. This was the breakdown coming in. Of course, Cleveland, the best season in their franchise history, number one offense. But the Pacers coming in, very hot over the second half of the season. That's continued in the playoffs over their first round series victory against Milwaukee, and in game one against the Cavs that the Pacers ended up getting in Cleveland, 121 to 112. Nick and I covered it a little bit here on the podcast on the recap here on last night. But Nick, I guess even before the game and even one game in now, what are your thoughts on the Pacers Cavs matchup here?
we talked about it a little bit last night. I just think that the Pacers have a solid squad, obviously, but my biggest thing is that Turner and Siakam are a bad matchup for Mobley and Allen, and without Garland, I think the Pacers' depth is a huge factor. I don't know. I'm more interested to hear what you have to say, though.
Yeah, I mean, going into the series, this was another again rest versus rust kind of thing. Even though both teams kind of had a long time off, I mean, the Cavs coming off of just completely obliterating the Miami Heat and going into a series against the Pacers team that yes, they already had they had a shorter series against the Milwaukee team, but that Milwaukee team is levels better than Miami. So they've already been playing that boosted level of basketball.
Right.
They've been in that offensive rhythm. Cavaliers from the jump in game 1 didn't really look like they were at that level that they needed to start the game. And the first quarter was really the difference for the Pacers. Cavs obviously made a run. They made things close, but the Pacers just made the big plays. And again, they were unbelievable offensively. I mean, all the shots they hit, 53% from three, making 19 threes, while the Cavs had their worst three-point shooting game of the season. And it only being a 9-point victory for the Pacers. I think that's a positive for the Cavs where, Pacers shot otherworldly from three. The Cavs couldn't hit, whatsoever. But I also think the Pacers forced the Cavs into tough shots and tough offensive possessions. And it wasn't just the Cavs missing open threes. Pacers were making the Cavs work. And I think Cleveland's going to need to wake up a little bit more here, going forward.
Have you thought any more about that Ty Jerome question I asked you last night?
About starting the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Um, so my thing is this. I mentioned this in the recap where I'm not sure how great Ty Jerome could fit in this series with the speed and athleticism of the Pacers. I think it may not be a bad idea to start him because I think if Cleveland's going to have a chance in this series after falling in game one, they're going to need to try and slow the game down a little bit because the Pacers were just having an advantage every time they were pushing the ball up the floor. And of course, if Darius Garland is still out, then Ty Jerome wouldn't be a bad thing. I also think that they could maybe explore moving Max Struess to the 2 and starting either DeAndre Hunter or Dean Wade at the 3 to get more size and defense out on the floor as well. I could see Kenny Atkinson going with either of those. Also, shout out to Kenny Atkinson, just got it live on the recording. He won Coach of the Year, so shout out to Kenny Atkinson for winning Coach of the Year. But I think that there definitely could be a lineup change coming for Cleveland, injury or not, to Garland. And that's something also that we have to talk about too, because the Cavs also got pretty nicked up in Game One. Now DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley are both also questionable for Game Two after Mobley rolled his ankle and Hunter had a rough fall after a crazy block by Benedict Mathurin. But Cavs definitely a little bit hobbled here going into Game Two. Definitely a little worrisome.
Yeah, I was this close to picking the Pacers to win the series in 7 games. Um, but hometown had to let my emotions get it a little bit in my pick, but um ended up going with the Cavs. Here's the thing. I didn't expect them to lose game one, even though Darius was out. Like I knew Darius was out and I still picked the Cavs to win. But Indy came out, like you said, I think it was the rest versus rust thing. They came out, they've been on that level, put up 36 in the first quarter and set the tone for the rest of the game, like we talked about a little bit last night. Cavs were just playing catch up, never really got control of the game, took the lead, but got to find a way to sort of slow it down and get to their play style and not let Indy run score 120 points. I know they shot the ball, shot the lights out, but you got to find a way to limit that a little bit because that's what Indy wants to do.
Yeah, and all their guys stepped up and played well. All their role players had a decent impact on this game. I mean, look, I mean, flat out, you're not going to win or you're not going to lose many games where you're shooting 53 from the field, 53 from 3, 93 from the line, and you have 6 players scoring double figures. It's usually not going to happen that much. While also playing solid defense to the point where the Cavs shot 24% from 3 at the other end. It's just not that great of a recipe for Cleveland. And I think that they will come back in Game 2. Game 2 is now probably a must win. Definitely don't want to go down 0-2 with both of the games at home. But I think something we saw in Game 1 was Evan Mobley had a very good game. I think they need to try to get the ball to him a little bit more because him against Siakam, I think, is a win of a matchup there. I think that those two maybe can balance each other out right there. It's the Allen Turner matchup that could cause some more problems because Turner can just stretch the defense out, for Indiana. But I still definitely don't think the series is over after one game that the Pacers shot so well. I mean, I think it's definitely also, important to note as well how, you know, all year for the Cavs in the now 19 losses that they've had, how well you have to play in order to beat this Cleveland team. I know JJ Redick talked about it during the year. After one of the Lakers Cavs games during the year, he said, "You need to play nearly perfect basketball to beat this team." And honestly, it's true. It took a perfect game from the Pacers basically to beat the Cavs going forward, and a rough game for the Cavs. We'll just see if the Pacers can keep it going and if the Cavs can try to bounce back here. But game 2 is the game that they've got to try and take.
I'm interested to see what happens because the Cavs are facing adversity right now with these injuries, and Indy has been not playing perfect basketball, but they were the clearly better team throughout the first 3 games in the series, and barring the first half of game 5 where they closed it out and had to come back by 20, been playing damn near perfect basketball for a little while.
Yeah, I would. They've probably been the second best team in the playoffs or third. Probably
Right, and
OKC, then Indy or Minnesota. One of those. It's probably been Indy at number two.
yeah, no one's picking Indy obviously, but like eventually they'll either run into a buzzsaw. Cavs are lose or got some injuries, facing some adversity. But Boston, I feel like would also just be a buzzsaw for Indy. I know we're not talking about that, but
Yeah, there's obviously still a long way to go, but Pacers just shooting historically, but also keeping that defense as well. I mean, they played nearly a perfect game in Game 1, and they've been extremely impressive, throughout these playoffs. so far. But there are round two predictions and previews. I'll throw this one up again in case since we kind of breezed through it. Nick and I do have the Cavs in 7, having this going long. Joey picked the Cavs in 5, has his hometown Cavaliers winning this, and Jackson going with the Pacers in 6. This is another series where could definitely go either way. Could definitely go either way, and wouldn't be too surprised. But that's it for those predictions here. Actually, before we get out of here, do want to talk quickly
El
about
Jefe.
yes, Greg Popovich stepping down as Spurs head coach after so many years. How many years was it actually? Probably 27 years, I believe, for Greg Popovich to move to the president of the Spurs, and they're promoting Mitch Johnson to be their head coach. Nick, just incredible, an incredible career for Greg Popovich. We kind of saw this coming. Of course, missed most of the season after having that mild stroke, but just an incredible career for Coach Pop. Got to give him all of his flowers.
Yeah, it obviously is tough news when you saw it reported, but typical in Coach Pop fashion, like making a joke of it, making light of the situation, not being down about it, anything ever. Saw his press conference, and he's wearing the El Jefe shirt on the front. On the back, it says El Presidente, so he's obviously hyped up for his new role. I think Tim Duncan and somebody else there on stage. It was just good to see
It was
him.
Manu Ginobili.
Oh, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. Sorry, Manu.
Yeah,
Just good to see him, smiling and laughing and poking fun at obviously not the best of situations, but
yeah, definitely fantastic. That he was able to go up and finally speak and have his kind of closing thoughts as head coach. As arguably the greatest coach, that the league has ever seen. I don't know if we will ever see a run like Greg Popovich with the Spurs ever again. I mean, you think about what ended up happening as soon as he got there. I want to go back. I want to make sure I have my years correct here. After being an executive and an assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs, the first year there, he started in 1996, so it was 29 years he was head coach for the Spurs. That's the season in 96-97 where they basically tanked to draft Tim Duncan.
yeah,
And after drafting Tim Duncan, basically had 20 straight years of winning 50 games and making the playoffs. Just incredible.
yeah,
Absolutely incredible. I don't know if we will ever see that again.
yeah. Hard to say.
But just an incredible career for Coach Pop, and congratulations on retirement and on an incredible career. I think definitely the right decision with his health and seeing the kind of shape he was in during the press conference. It was hard for me to watch, just to see him obviously not be fully healthy and not be as energetic as he normally is, but great to see that he's doing well enough to have this sort of role. And just shout out to Coach Pop, man. I know Joey would have a lot to say because he's such a big Spurs fan from that time.
Yeah.
But that's all we got here today. Nick, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, Joey, you can give your Coach Pop thoughts next time we see you.
Absolutely. That's right. Shout out to Joey. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to all you guys for watching this. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA postseason content. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.